That's good for 3.3 yards per carry. They did have the one rushing touchdown from Jeremy that you got early on in the game. But the running game definitely not a strength for Alabama. And really early on, you could tell they were struggling because it felt like every time they were toting the ball, it was like, I mean, you're getting 2 yards maybe. So that was definitely something that's going to have to continue to improve. The good news on the running game front, though, is you expect the next time you're out on the field against Georgia that you will have Jam Miller back, who is your RB1. So that's good, certainly a good thing there. But Ty Simpson did have that one good scramble later in the game where you got to see his wheels a little bit. So he had 25 yards. He was actually the leading rusher on the day for Alabama. But how about this little unknown wide receiver? You knew that someone was going to have to step up, right, for Alabama because it can't. Jeremy Bernard can't do everything, right? He's been incredible, but somebody's going to have to step up and help him out. So I don't know. I guess this guy had been buried on the depth chart somewhere. His name's Ryan Williams. I think a lot of people had forgotten what he was capable of, but he goes out there and yes, he did drop a touchdown later in the game. I'm aware of that, and that is something that doesn't need to happen. But outside of that, he did go for 5 catches, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including that 75-yard touchdown on the double screen, or like they did a reverse flea flicker screen pass, whatever that was that they called right out of halftime. He took it 75 yards to the house thanks to some excellent blocking in front of him. But yeah, he was absolutely electric on Saturday, and we were all reminded why. He is paid $1.8 million and why he was on the cover of the video game and why you really probably shouldn't be that upset that he carries a teddy bear or whatever into the game because T-Rex, because when he does that, doesn't really matter a whole lot. So good day for Ryan Williams as he reminds everyone just how good he can be now that he is healthy. And he had his first 100-yard receiving game since Georgia of last year. Just think about that. First game with 100 or more receiving yards since Georgia of last year. So hopefully that is a sign of things to come if you're an Alabama fan, especially since Georgia is the next opponent up for you on the schedule. But defensively for Alabama, I thought they looked really, really sharp as well. You did have, of course, you had the touchdown you gave up late, and then you had the touchdown on the kickoff return that was a result of a running into the official penalty that there in the stadium, it was kind of like didn't see that one and didn't get a replay of it, but hey, it happens. It is what it is. But those are the kinds of penalties that obviously, as you can see, can hurt you in big time games and close one possession games, right? That could be the difference there. So got to get those things cleared up because, I mean, as Kalen DeBoer said after the game, he's right. If you don't get that penalty, that kicks in the back of the end zone. It's a touchback, but instead it's a touchdown for the other team. And yeah, those are just some sloppy things that you have to continue to improve because Alabama, again, was fairly heavily penalized in this game and in a game where we've now gone through. And since Kalen DeBoer has been there, if I'm not mistaken, Alabama has been the more penalized team in every single game that he's been the coach of. They had 7 for 57 yards this weekend against Wisconsin. But I thought overall defensively, much better effort, especially in the first half, kind of faltered there late. And then when you got some of the backups in, they just kind of felt like they were there to get out of there, go home. But in the first half, at least you had 4 sacks, which is something you're not used to seeing from the Alabama defense here recently. So I thought that was really, really impressive. Bray Hubbard had a couple of interceptions. So a big day for the guys that everyone had written off in Bray Hubbard and Ryan Williams on Saturday. So Alabama, they get the 38-14 win over Wisconsin. And I think a lot of people, maybe the ULM game didn't put a lot of people on notice, but I think this one certainly has some people looking at Alabama in a little bit of a different light. But of course, much bigger challenges lie ahead for the Crimson Tide after the bye week. So good win for Alabama. They moved to 2-1 on the season with a win over the Wisconsin Badgers. Now, how about on the other side of the state where you had Auburn taking on South Alabama? And this game was a little different than the Alabama and Wisconsin game. I think a lot of Auburn fans today not particularly thrilled with their defense and how that looked at times on Saturday. But Auburn gets the win 31-15. And I will just say this. I'm not saying this to make a joke or take a shot at anybody. But I'm just saying a couple years ago, this is a game that maybe you lose, right? And so now if you're in this situation, or maybe it's a it's a field goal game or a one-score game at the end, and you really don't feel great about it. So, again, I think obviously Auburn could have played better in the game on Saturday, but you won by 16 points over a solid program in South Alabama. I wouldn't be too hard on yourselves about it, but I do think defensively, right, you have some things that you can certainly clear up. Gave up 20 first downs to South Alabama on Saturday. For comparison, Auburn had 19 first downs. So that's certainly something that they're going to want to work on. Hugh Freeze after the game said, yeah, we got to get guys off the field on 3rd and long. We can't keep letting people convert and keep these drives alive when it's, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12. You can't be giving up those kinds of plays. Those will absolutely kill your defense. But again, for Auburn, right, a really solid day running the football. Jeremiah Cobb, he leads the way. 19 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown, doing a great job filling in for Damari Alston as he works his way back from that injury. Jackson Arnold adds a couple more touchdowns on the ground, so getting a little bit back to what you saw from the Baylor matchup there. He had 50 yards on 10 carries for a couple of touchdowns. Through the air, though, Jackson Arnold, 13 of 24, 142 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. That touchdown, that was a great play early on, that touchdown he threw to Cam Coleman, and I'll be honest, when that happened, I thought, okay, they're about to sling it around the yard today, and it just didn't quite go that way. I've seen, I guess, a lot of sentiments on social media of, people kind of wanting to see Jackson Arnold let it rip a little bit more, especially when you have as much talent in the wide receiver room as they do have. But still, you won the football game by 16 points. So certainly things that you can take away from that game and improve upon if you are Auburn, both offensively and defensively. But again, you got out to a great start. It was 28-9 going into halftime. And to be fair, yeah, if you don't get that turnover later in the game that, put Auburn back in possession in the fourth quarter, because South Alabama, if they had been able to keep that drive going and score, it would have been a one-possession game. But you were able to get those turnovers, right? And so as much as the defense maybe faltered in certain areas when you needed them the most, they came through for you at the end, and Auburn was able to get that big fumble recovery that ultimately kept South Alabama out of the end zone. It also prevented the over from hitting, which maybe some people had an interest in. But other than that, if you're an Auburn fan, I think you're 3-0. You've done what you needed to do up to this point. Right now, we're going to find out a lot of things about Auburn this weekend. We're going to find out a lot of things about Oklahoma this weekend as well. But up to this point, you have handled your business. You have gone out there. I know maybe it didn't look as pretty as you would have liked for it to this Saturday, but you won by 16 points. I think, again, when you look at the last couple of years, you will gladly take that, move on, and say, hey, I'm glad we have things to address this week going into Oklahoma. I'm glad it's not all sunshine and rainbows on the plains. We need to have a little bit of that fire under us going into Norman because Oklahoma looks really, really good. They look really, really good, but Auburn absolutely can give them the business. But you're going to have to play the best game that you've played all year, and you're probably going to have to play the best game that Auburn football's played in 3 or 4 years if you're going to go on the road and knock off Oklahoma this weekend. So it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend talking about those games, breaking them down for you. Alabama, again, they're going to be on bye this week. Auburn traveling to Norman to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. So that's your recap of what happened with Alabama and Auburn this weekend. Everybody's happy again for a second week in a row because both teams won, right? That's how it works. When they win, everyone's happy. So
yeah, I think the style in which you win, though. Like I think for Auburn, what I came away with is they're too talented to be still searching for an identity. Like I still think their game plan is for them to they want to throw it all over the yard because of what they have, but I still think Jeremiah Cobb showed you this past weekend that he can stomach 20-something carries. Like I honestly think that he can be your bell cow. And I don't know, like it just didn't feel complete, to say the least. The defense made stops when they needed to, but they just weren't consistent enough. And shout out to South Alabama for truly, making it difficult. But I do think that they mismanaged the clock there at the end as well, where it kind of felt like they were just conceding because it's like, wait a minute, you have your timeouts, you're running the football with less than 3 minutes left, and they made no effort to attack the end zone. And I think I think Auburn not necessarily was looking ahead because they do know what's at stake with Oklahoma. They do know what the task is with Oklahoma. but it just didn't feel comfortable. Like it just didn't feel like they they dominated that ball game, in which I thought they would have, because the first two games, you go back and look at Baylor, they smacked them around. Once they realized, oh, we're going to run the football, we're going to take off. Ball State is Ball State, and for South Alabama, it felt like they were trying to get too cute, to say the least, and they didn't really just assert their dominance, at least on the offensive side, because defensively it was okay. You're rotating in bodies. Understand you're trying to get a lot of guys some reps, but now you're starting to see that you got to separate a little bit. I still think nobody can block Keyron Crawford and Keldrick Faulk consistently. They made it difficult, but you do have some question marks in the secondary. The secondary is probably your Achilles heel, and you're going to face better teams that can attack you vertically than what you saw with South Alabama. So I think that you're good. You're happy that you're 3-0. Nobody's going to be upset that you're 3-0, because if every game is going to be an ugly win, you look up, you're undefeated. But there are some things that you definitely need to iron out, because the competition from this point forward is going to be pretty stiff.
Yeah, you're about to play the best quarterback and the best defense that you played up to this point in the season this Saturday. So yeah, it's going to step up quickly, and the handful. It's not easy for anybody in the SEC, but Auburn definitely has their work cut out for them over the next handful of weekends, and the same for Alabama once they get back on their bye week. Right? There's no easy sledding in the SEC, and based on what we've seen this year, just about everybody remaining on the schedule for both Alabama and Auburn is going to have a number next to their name. So at least as it stands right now. So a lot for us to look forward to as we get further into the week and get you ready for that big matchup in Norman with Auburn and Oklahoma, as well as the rest of the SEC. But we know Alabama and Auburn were winners over the weekend. How did the rest of the conference fare? Because we had some absolutely, just amazing football games over the weekend. So we've got Georgia, Tennessee, we've got Texas A&M, Notre Dame, we've got LSU, Florida, and that's just scratching the surface from the weekend. So when we come back, we'll get to the rest of the SEC, the best games from the weekend. What did we learn? Who are the real contenders? Who are the real pretenders? Our takeaways from week 3 around the SEC. That's next here on JOX. 6:20. Welcome back into Morning Jocks here on your Monday. Conrad and Damien here with you until 7 a.m. Appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every morning. We'll get to some of your takeaways on the courtesy GMC text line here in a moment as well. 205-834-9450 if you want to get in and argue if John Mateer or Sawyer Robertson's better, because that's an argument that we have going on the text line right now, and we appreciate all of your sentiments coming in. I mean, I guess
Yeah, listen, nobody's arguing that Sawyer Robertson's stats aren't better because, well, the first game of the season they were losing, so they had to throw it all over the yard. But also, you can look at John Mateer and kind of tell, like, okay, he's got a little bit of juice, a little bit more juice than what Sawyer Robertson has. Not to say that Sawyer Robertson is not one of the better quarterbacks in college football, but I think who do you think will be in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony, John Mateer or Sawyer Robertson?
I mean, I think Sawyer Robertson's a good player, but I think that John Mateer's, in my opinion, I mean, I think he's a better quarterback, and I think that, in my opinion, going to Michigan and doing what he did in that game is more impressive than playing Auburn at home or SMU, who's not as good as, I mean.
It's obvious.
But, I mean, again,
yeah,
to each their own, right, in that regard. But yeah, no, I didn't think it was wild to say that John Mateer is the best quarterback that Auburn will have played this year. But hey, if you disagree, then that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's get to some of the other action we had over the weekend. And how about this was? I mean, it was the best game of the weekend. I think there were a couple contenders, but I think this one absolutely takes the cake. And it lived up to the hype, and that's Georgia-Tennessee. In a game where, if you're a Tennessee fan, you probably felt like you had a really, really good opportunity. And after, I don't know, the first 15, 20 minutes of the game, you felt like you really had a really good opportunity to take down Georgia for the first time in 9 seasons. But ultimately, too much Georgia too late, and it was 44-41, the final there in overtime. As you feel so bad for the kid, man, but I think we've all, or most of us, have seen the picture of the face on Tennessee's kicker as he is going to walk out on the field to kick a game-winning field goal. Tennessee would have been able to win the game in regulation, and he sends the kick, misses it wide, and the kid looked like he was on the front lines of war going in to kick a field goal, and you know that's typically never a good sign when you see something like that. So if you're a Tennessee fan, you probably didn't have a great feeling about it. And I mean, obviously, right, it is a huge moment. This is one of those moments, if you're Tennessee and you win this game, where it really feels like, all right, you've gotten the Alabama monkey off your back. Now you've got this Georgia monkey on your back, and you just can't get over the hurdle. And this is the closest you've gotten. And unfortunately, you come up just short there, as Georgia and Gunnar Stockton were just a little too much there for the Tennessee Volunteers. You got to give it up to Gunnar Stockton, though. I know after the Austin Peay game, right, a lot of us had questions about, is this going to be the guy for Georgia? Are they going to need to maybe take a look at someone else at quarterback? And all he did was come in, run for 38 yards and a touchdown, and add 304 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. And, man, that throw he made on 4th down for the touchdown to London Humphreys to tie the game.
That was a dot.
That's a play right there.
That's a dime.
That's some big boy football right there. So that was absolutely incredible. But equally as good, and maybe even more impressive, especially early on in the game, was Joey Aguilar, man. I mean, he has brought something back to this Tennessee offense that it's crazy to say, but you know, that down the field passing game just wasn't great with Nico. He was always, for whatever reason, it felt like every deep throw Nico made was just 1 or 2 steps off from where the receiver was. But Joey Aguilar, he was on the money on Saturday. He throws for 371 yards, 4 touchdowns, did have a couple of interceptions. But, I mean, he was exceptional, especially early on in this game. Because, I mean, Tennessee got out to a 21-7 lead, and you're sitting there and you're going, man, how is Georgia going to respond to this? Because it was 7-7, then Tennessee scores quickly to go up 2 scores, and you're just like, man, they might step on their throat here, and this could end up getting pretty ugly. But methodical Georgia, right? They just slowly but surely grinded their way back to where they were able to take the lead and hold Tennessee at 21 for quite some time. And I mean, it was such a fantastic game, but you feel bad for Tennessee, right? Because they had a lot of opportunities that they squandered. The missed field goal, obviously, being at the top of that list, but for Georgia, going into Neyland Stadium, getting down early, and finding a way to battle back and get that win, uh, that's Georgia football right there, and that's why you don't doubt Kirby Smart.
Yeah, Tennessee shot themselves in the foot. Penalties at some of just
penalties were awful.
Yeah, some of the wrong times. You could not convert a third down for a while. But when Georgia settled into that ball game, they settled in, and I think Tennessee is probably kicking themselves. One, I was upset with Josh Heupel because you had all three of your timeouts. I thought you needed to, at least in regulation, you should have attacked the end zone during that last drive because you were in great field position, and I understand you're playing to win the game either by a field goal or a touchdown. But to me, if you at least attack the end zone and leave them with a smaller amount of time, you're not asking your defense to go out there and have to put up for an entire drive. Make Gunnar Stockton beat you with his arm. Now, could he have made some throws like he did with London Humphreys? Maybe so, but he's going to have to do it, 80 yards down the football field. I think that in regulation also, you may feel for the kicker. I do not. Like, they are setting it up for you. This is your moment.
You got to make the kick.
Yeah,
you do. Yeah,
I understand there's pressure on you, but they are making it. They are when you started looking at the offense, like, okay, yeah, they're running the football, they're giving it to me. Like it's like the fight or flight, and to me, it just solidifies. Kickers need to lock in during the week. Like, these are the moments where it's like, hey, all that playing around and stuff you do all week long, when we need you to go out here and execute. Like, you have one job. You got one job. Put it through these uprights. And whether the pressure gets to you or not, the look of fear, like, if I was Josh Heupel, I would have had to make sure I looked him in his eyes and like, hey, either your scholarship is gone, or we need to go Hail Mary right here with at the 30-some yard line. Because to me, I just think that Josh did everything he was supposed to analytically of, all right, chew the clock, get it to where he's comfortable with. Because it wasn't like he was kicking a 60-yarder or something. What was it, 47? And he misses it. And then in overtime, you get the exact same look and you make it, and then your defense ends up falling. Mm-hmm. And it's just, to me, I thought he should have been a little bit more aggressive as the clock was running out. That was kind of my big question mark about it was, man, okay, your offense has really kind of kept you in the ball game, and what he was dialing up on that drive was like, okay, well, if you hit him with a play action right now, you may get the top, you might hit him off over the top. But he stuck to the run game. Joey Aguilar kind of centers it, and then they get a false start 5 yards back, and then the kicker goes out there and absolutely shanks it. And it's like, man, you can't win for losing. And granted, like you said, Joey Aguilar, he came out the gate absolutely on fire. But a lot of credit to Georgia too when they settled in. They punched Tennessee in the mouth, and there were multiple drives where Tennessee had them in third and medium and third and long, and they still couldn't find a way to get them off the field. But a lot of credit goes to Gunnar Stockton too, man. He's a tough one. He may not look the flashiest, he may be a little inconsistent, but that dude he's tough, man. He's a gamer.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it there. So a big win for Georgia, affirming, I think, what a lot of us thought we might have known about Georgia. And I think for Tennessee, I'll be honest, like, I walked away. I know they lost, but I walked away with a more positive impression of Tennessee after that game because it's, oh, okay, I just, with everything that happened this offseason, I didn't think that you were going to get a Tennessee team that competitive. And so I walked away very impressed with Tennessee. And so we'll see what they can do with the rest of their schedule, obviously. But I have much more positive feelings towards Tennessee after their performance against Georgia. I thought they showed a lot of grit, and I think Joey Aguilar is definitely a much better quarterback than really any of us were expecting him to be coming into the SEC. So that was, I think, the best game of the weekend, but we have so many more games to get to. We're not going to be able to get to all of them today. That's just the reality of only having 1 hour, but we're going to try our best to get to some of these big ones. We'll break down Texas A&M Notre Dame for you next because that was another absolutely fantastic game, as well as get some of your thoughts on the Courtesy GMC text line at 205-834-9450 as we roll along here on the Monday morning edition of Morning JOX.
6:34 here on Morning Jocks. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. And, of course, you as well, our wonderful listeners, 205-834-9450. You can text or call in. I'll get you on the Courtesy GMC text line and also the phone lines as well as we recap everything across the SEC. I know there's so many games that we won't get a chance to get to, but as Conrad spoke about during the break, before we went to break, Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Again, that evening slate of games on Saturday when you had LSU in Florida, Arkansas and Ole Miss. The SEC Network had Vanderbilt and South Carolina. You had to flip over the NBC to get this Notre Dame and Texas A&M matchup. But when you talk about a complete game from start to finish, and something that we had been discussing, pretty much all week long was, what is Texas A&M's plan of attack going to be? Are they still going to hang on Marcel Reed and just let him throw it all over the yard? Well, that's pretty much exactly what you got, because the running game was the struggling part for Texas A&M. But when they opened up the pass game and when Marcel Reed was consistent, because, again, there's one thing that came away from this game when people were talking about Marcel Reed needs to be in the Heisman conversation. I was just like, let's tone it back a little bit. Let's truly watch that game for what it was. Now, did he make great plays? Absolutely. But some of the misses, they were bad. But Texas A&M goes to South Bend and hands Notre Dame a loss, 41-40, and it went all the way until essentially the last play of the football game for Texas A&M. And again, Texas A&M, to me, I have been questioning what their identity was going to be, and if they would find themselves in a situation like this, could Marcel Reed step up and make those plays? And he did. He did. And another takeaway from this ball game, I knew Texas A&M receivers had juice. They put that on full display on Saturday night. Like, it is, they are going to be absolutely, they can go for the shootout they need to and actually feel comfortable with the guys that they have. Craver, Concepcion, even the tight ends getting involved in the mix. Texas A&M, now there's some things defensively you have got to shore up, but they are a lot better than I really gave them credit for going into this matchup.
Yeah, just a lot of the things that I was saying about Tennessee before the break of, right, I know they lost the game and Texas A&M won the game, but I came away with a much better impression of Texas A&M being able to go and get that win. And, you brought it up. I think the biggest takeaway for a lot of people is this Mario Craver guy is pretty good, because when you have 7 catches for 207 yards and a touchdown, that's going to open some people's eyes. And I think, just what he's meant to that team for the first 3 weeks of the season, I have no problem saying he's been the best receiver in the SEC up to this point in the year. Now, does that mean he's going to finish that way? Maybe not, but at least right now he's made the biggest impact for his team. And, you brought up Marcel Reed, and he throws for 360 yards and 2 touchdowns along with an interception. The thing that's so impressive about it, it's one of those things where obvious room for improvement, but it also makes the 360 passing yards more impressive. He did that going 17 of 37.
Right.
Like, he completed less than 50% of his passes, but they went for 360 yards. So, again, that's an area where you can look and go, all right, gonna have to get the accuracy up a little bit, because you just start to look and you go, man, all right, what if that turns from 17 for 37 to 25 of 37, right? Like, how different does the game ultimately look? So, certainly still room for him to grow and improve there. But, still, this is a guy who's relatively young in his career and time of being a starting quarterback in the SEC. And it's just, I was so impressed with Texas A&M and how they were able to win there on the final play of the game. But, Notre Dame came out and kind of made a statement there early on, but Texas A&M took over. They scored 21 points in the second quarter, all rushing touchdowns by Le'Veon Moss, and that really kind of set the tone for them. But, it was just a fantastic football game, right? Because you had both teams going back and forth, what felt like the entirety of the second half, essentially. And I think if you're a Texas A&M fan, I'd love to hear from John Mack this morning. I think the best thing that happened to you is getting that kickoff called back for a penalty, right?
Yep.
Because Texas A&M, they ran back a kick with, 3 minutes left, something like that. And after the Jeremiah Love touchdown, they ran it back, and it got called back with a penalty, and that's what allowed them to then drive down the field and score there at the very, very end of the game. And, sometimes that's just the way it works, right? Most of the time you don't think of a kickoff getting called back from a touchdown being a good thing, but it was for Texas A&M because it allowed them to not give Notre Dame the ball back with 2.5 minutes to go and take the lead back. So really impressive. Definitely the biggest win that Mike Elko's gotten there for Texas A&M, and I think starting to look again like last year where they're going to be in contention for Atlanta and for playing in the SEC championship game, but are they going to falter down the stretch like they did last year against Auburn and Texas? Or are those going to be games that you win this year and you do find yourself finally making it to Atlanta? But they're going to get to see Auburn in a couple of weeks, as we know, down there in College Station, so that's going to be a big matchup, but certainly a massive, massive win for Texas A&M. And now for Notre Dame, we'll get to the AP poll here in a minute, but you're 0-2 coming off of your national championship game appearance last year. I still think Notre Dame's a good team, but, playing Miami and A&M the first 2 games is tough, but it's
kind of what you sign up for, though.
It is what you sign up for, and I don't know how they can still be in the top 25 right now just because, we're going into week 4 and you don't have a win yet.
Right.
Like, yeah. I know the way your schedule works out. I know you played good teams, but I'm sorry. I find it hard to believe that USF is not worthy of being ranked for another week, even though they lost to Miami. But we're going to give a Notre Dame team that's lost to Miami and Texas A&M and doesn't have any quality wins. We're going to keep giving them the benefit of the doubt. But to be fair, I'm sure that's what a lot of you said after Alabama lost to Florida State. So I guess it is what it is. But yeah, big win there for the Aggies as they get a win 41-40 over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Another game that I wanted to hit on here. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on it because it honestly got really ugly and really lopsided. And, we'll see what happens with Lenora Sellers. But, talk about those Vandy boys, man. They absolutely laid it on the Gamecocks there at Williams-Brice. 31-7. 31-7. So Vanderbilt, they beat the Gamecocks by 24 points. Vanderbilt was unranked going into the game. South Carolina was ranked 11th. Lenora Sellers, he gets knocked out, took a hit to the head early on in the game. So that, unfortunately, when Luke Doty came in, you just didn't have a great feeling. Now, to be fair, he was able to make some plays early and kind of keep South Carolina in it for a bit, but you knew that, Vanderbilt pretty much, they smelt blood in the water once Lenora Sellers went out of that game, and they absolutely put their foot on the throat of the South Carolina Gamecocks. So just a remarkable win there for Clark Lee. Even with Lenora Sellers going out, the fact that you beat them like that, 31-7 that's tough. That's tough. And so for Vanderbilt to go in and do that, I think they're very much reminding everybody, hey, we're still the same Vanderbilt from last year. You can't be overlooking us on the schedule, and we'll see if this can be an even better version of the Vanderbilt we saw last year. But, yeah, major kudos. Big win there for Clark Lee, Diego Pavia and company as they go into South Carolina and open up a can of you-know-what.
Yeah, this isn't a fluke. Vanderbilt has really – I never thought that we would get to the point where we're having a discussion. And I think it's something that will be, as week to week, we'll start to separate. But Vanderbilt is one of the better teams in the SEC.
They're good.
And for them, and credit to, I understand Lenora Sellers – even when he was out there, it didn't necessarily feel like it was South Carolina's game. They were struggling offensively even when he was out there. And Vanderbilt, once they smell blood in the water, Vanderbilt's tough, man.
Yep.
They are different. I can no longer look at them as, oh yeah, they're just sneaking up on people, or the fact that, oh yeah, Diego Pavia. Now Diego Pavia is the engine that keeps this thing running. But everybody else on that field has really stepped up their game. Like Cedric Alexander. I think his coming out party was the Alabama game last year. But now if you've really watched him as a running back, he's one of the more complete runners across the board. He can do just about everything. If you need him to catch out the backfield, he can do that. He's not afraid to step up and pass pro. And when he's running the football, he's just as explosive as some of the better guys in college football as far as running the ball. And he's also able to run between the tackles and get those dirty yards. Vanderbilt is you can no longer play your B+ or B- game against Vanderbilt because they will beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just a squeak by. It's no, if you really want to make this a fist fight, Vanderbilt welcomes it and they're not looking back.
Yeah, there's no joke about that. So Auburn and Alabama certainly going to have their hands full when they take on Vanderbilt as part of their SEC slates, and feels like every team in the conference is probably going to have their hands full with Vanderbilt when they come to town. So A big win there for Vandy as they anchor down South Carolina, take down the Gamecocks 31-7. So those are some of the highlights from the weekend. Of course, there's a lot of other games that we still didn't have time to get to. So, but we also want to hear from you. Get your reaction on the text line 205-834-9450, as well as take some of your phone calls. And that is exactly what we will do next here on the Monday morning edition of Morning JOX. Few more minutes here on the Monday edition of Morning JOX. Appreciate you making us a part of your morning each and every day. It's Conrad and Damien here with you, and we will hand you off to McElroy and Kublick in the morning coming up at 7 o'clock. So going to get to some of your reaction to week 3 around the college football season. But first, a couple of notes. If you missed it, unfortunately, we're at that point of the year where coaches are getting fired. So you had two head coaches fired in college football yesterday. You had Brent Pry of Virginia Tech, who we all knew that one was coming. Yeah. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Old Dominion, not a great way to start off your season against those programs with those performances. So yeah, Brent Pry's out there at Virginia Tech, and we can talk about this later in the week, but what may go down as the stupidest decision of at least the modern transfer portal era in college football, but Nico Iamaleava going to UCLA to play for a dog water program.
And to make it worse. Made it worse.
Whose coach got fired yesterday? And Deshaun Foster. So Nico now doesn't have a coach, and Joey Aguilar looks like a superstar, and Tennessee is laughing all the way to the bank because they're not paying their quarterback nearly as much as they were 6 months ago. So those are your firings across college football. You also had the AP poll come out last week. Some movement there. Auburn, they move up to number 22 in this week's poll. Alabama up to number 14. So Alabama making some big moves there after the win over Wisconsin. You got Vanderbilt. They're in there at number 20 right now. Georgia Tech at 18 after their big upset win over Clemson. Notre Dame still fighting for life there at number 24. And let's see, Oklahoma, number 11. So you're going to have 11 versus 22 this weekend with them and Auburn. Texas A&M moves up into the top 10. So a lot of what you would expect there, but Alabama and Auburn continuing to move up the AP poll this week. Now let's go to the phone lines real quick here. Let's get Don in for just a second, get his thoughts on Auburn this weekend. How you feeling, Don?
Hey, guys. Good morning to you. A little mixed reaction. I think Damian had some good points and everything, but it was kind of weird at the end of the game. South Alabama didn't act like they were trying to score. I agree with that.
Right. I'm just like, why are you running the ball? What? You're chewing the clock and you're suffocating yourselves. Like, at least go for the end zone. Attempt to go for the end zone.
Yeah, and on our end, we just kind of we got up 28-9, and I think Singleton and Coleman got a little dinged up, so they took them out. So we didn't even hardly have the ball in the second half. I think Hugh Freeze said we had a total of 8 drives for the whole game. They had the ball most of the whole entire game.
But yeah, that's not what you want to see, but hey, a win is a win, right, Don?
Absolutely. Hey, we're 3-0, and guys, 2 years ago, we probably would have lost that game. Hello, New Mexico State, right, D?
That's a great point there. So, but now you got a good challenge coming up this week in Oklahoma.
Yes, we do, guys. Okay, guys, I'll see everybody tomorrow at Social Taco as always.
All right, sounds good, Don. Appreciate you chiming in there this morning. Let's get to Steven quickly. He's calling in from Dallas, wants to talk Texas A&M. How we doing, Steven?
Great. No, it's a big win. I think our defense is going to get better. One of the things with Marcel that's going to help him is the penalties got to get cleaned up. One of our guards was out, Fathery, and they had I can't remember his name now, but he was a new guy in there, and I don't know how many penalties he had, but that's going to affect your completion percentage. The folks that just look at the box score, but Marcel, I know he's going to have a fine-tooth comb with Damian, and I get it. We have all battered Aggie syndrome. Hey, when are they going to tank? If they will tank if they lose their arguably one of the best running backs in the country like they did last year. Hopefully that doesn't happen. They will tank if their quarterback, Marcel Reed, gets hurt. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So I'm convinced Kyle Fields on an Indian burial ground. You could do a 30 for 30, but hopefully as long as everybody stays healthy, and we got a big one with Auburn. And I do think that Mateer, again, if you watch the game, do I think that he can be a good quarterback? Yes, but he should have had could have had 3 interceptions in that game against a very bad Michigan team. So I do think Auburn has a really good chance not just to win, but to get some takeaways in doing so. But yeah, and then I don't know, the Auburn game, the bye week comes at a great week. Auburn's going to be a challenge. This is a team that spoiled your national championship hopes in 2012, spoiled your SEC championship hopes last year. So, we don't talk about A&M Auburn as such a rivalry, but they've always been a thorn in in A&M's side, on these every 1 out of 4 years A&M's contending, So this is a big one, another big revenge game, and I love how breaking the hearts of all the love hand signals on Saturday, man. It was great. They were talking a lot of smack, and at the end of the day, it was fitting love, just getting, trying to lateral it. And in the end, we knew we let one get away last year. We're a different team this year, and Marcel's. And now we got receivers. We didn't have anything last year. Noah Thomas, you've seen how that's going in Georgia. So, gig 'em. Thanks, guys.
Yep, appreciate the call there, Steven. Let's wrap up real quick. Let's see if he's still here. We have John Mack on the phone lines. John Mack, you got about 45 seconds if you got something to say.
Good morning, boys. It was a great win against Notre Dame. You guys are exactly right, though. Having that kickoff, it was a phantom call. Let's all admit it. There was no holding on that. But getting it called back, gave us an ability to go down and, eat up that clock, get that final. The one thing I never realized that the Notre Dame fans were the softest fans in the world, because they won't stop talking about that holding call.
Great way for us to end the show there. Thank you, John Mack. We're back tomorrow at 6. Macaroni Cubic in the morning.